All right. All right. Well, Anthony, thank you for that wonderful introduction. But I'm not sure I mentioned you one time in this testimony, so I'm really sorry about this. Do we need a light? Do we need a light? I think we might. I do. I don't know if we do, but I certainly do. My name is Arlene Jackson. I'm a Christian in recovery from chemical dependency and codependency. My sobriety date for drugs and alcohol is November 27th, 1985. I began my recovery from codependency in 1994, and I smoked my last cigarette on April 1st, 2000. Yay! That was hard. So as you can see, recovery is a process. It's a process. It's a journey. It's not a destination. Recovery doesn't happen all at once. I've lived one day at a time, and as those days have progressed, things have gotten better. And if you hear nothing more than this today, remember, life gets better with Jesus and with recovery. The rest of this testimony today is just trying to prove that fact. That's it, okay? If you hear nothing else, that's it. So I was born in Brooklyn, New York in 1958 to two very young parents, Vincent and Annie Ugelowitz. They were 20 years old when I was born, so how that went down, okay? My mom was in love with my father's twin, Joe, who didn't love her back. And my father was in love with a girl named Blanche, who didn't love him back. So my parents married one another instead. And it is family lore that on their wedding night, my father whispered to Annie, my mother, "I love you, Blanche," and it was all downhill from there. My brother Nick was born a year after I was, and soon after my parents got divorced. My father was never a part of my life, and my mother would remarry several times in search of the perfect man. My mother was high functioning, she was creative, she was hysterical and unpredictable, and I used to say that she was the meanest woman on the planet. It wasn't until I grew up that I discovered that she had been sexually molested for her entire childhood by her father, and it explained a lot. Mom finally married my stepfather, who I considered to be my real father, and they stayed married for about 20 years before getting divorced. That's the man you saw in all the pictures. My father was young and handsome and wild and an alcoholic. He was a great dad, but he was a terrible husband. And that, coupled with the fact that my mother was literally out of her mind, all that made for a really violent and turbulent childhood. Jails and institutions were involved. My parents gave me and my brother two more siblings, Dorothy and Billy, and now there were 4 kids in this great big dysfunctional mess called our family. Now, there were a lot of pictures in my slideshow of me and my little sister Dorothy. She was the baby in my arms, and so many of them. The reasons there are so many pictures of Dorothy and me is that in our family, I was Dorothy's protector. Our childhood was so awful that I took on the role of just taking care of her. It gave me something concrete to do while really awful things were happening around us. It made me feel powerful. It made me feel in control over my life to keep her safe. And I think that's where my codependency really took root. One favorite story I have about our family is Dorothy's first birthday party. Now, Dorothy was my dad's first natural child, so he got really drunk the week before her birthday, of course, and when he eventually made it home, he had invited half of New Jersey and most of New York City to go to a party in the honor of his daughter's first birthday. We had no idea how many people were going to come, and what a party it was. Oh my goodness, 200 people showed up at our house. We had 2 live bands in the backyard. All the neighbors from our street were hanging over the back fence just wondering what those crazy people were up to this time. We had an above-ground pool at the time. Some people were naked in there. There were several barbecue grills, an awful lot of booze and beer, and God only knows what else. And where was I? I was 11 years old. I was in the living room all alone, feeding Dorothy a bottle and singing to her and loving her. Nobody even acknowledged that it was her birthday. Everybody was too busy partying. That's the way it was with our family. And eventually, that's the way it became for me. You know, when I give my testimony, I always tell a lot about my family because for me, that's where it all started. In my family when I was young, I learned everything I knew about life. from my family, and many of the lessons that I learned just weren't the right ones. They were wrong. Things like love hurts. Don't trust anyone. You have to control everything because everything's out of control. You'll never be good enough. Don't let anyone get to know you. Don't show your feelings. Men are always smarter than women, and men are dogs too. And there's only really one way to get one, although I don't get those three things together. Never tell the family secrets. Now, these aren't lessons that anybody came out and sat me down and actually said to me verbally. They were lessons I surmised by the way life went in my family, the way people treated me and one another. We were a very closed and secretive family. So it's no wonder as I got older, I had no idea, none whatsoever, none on how to live life. I just made it up as I went along. When it came to God, my family was sort of Catholic. Sort of Catholic. We never went to church. I got baptized as a child. I made my communion in 3rd grade, my confirmation in the 6th grade, but I didn't know what any of it meant. I had no idea. It was just something you did. I didn't even know who Jesus was, except that he was born on Christmas Day. Vaguely, I knew that. In fact, I didn't even know, here's the deal, I didn't even know that Easter was the resurrection of Jesus until I was over 30 years old. I didn't have any concept of God at all as a child. So around the age of 12, I began to drink. And drugs came about not too long after, and then boys, and it was all a recipe for chaos and disaster. My life just became full of partying, smoking, drinking, sex, and drugs, and rock and roll. That was all. All my friends were doing it too. Everybody was doing it, so it seemed normal to me, really. I didn't know any better. It's just what we did. Now, I did really well in school because I was smart, and school came easy. But when I graduated high school, all my friends that I partied with went off to college, and I just didn't. That was a real shocker to me. I guess I would have gone to college, but you have to consider that nobody in my family had ever, in any generation, graduated from high school. I was the first, so college wasn't the norm for our people. I was surprised when college didn't magically just happen for me, but I didn't know you had to do things to make it happen, like paperwork and procedures and things like that, so I just didn't go. And all my smart partying friends left, and I stayed behind. So I had to think of something to do. A biker friend of mine suggested that I become an exotic dancer. They made good money, and I figured, well, why not? It's in a bar, has lots of drugs, there's lots of alcohol, it sounded good. And that was going to be my employment for the next 10 years until I got sober. During those years, I married and divorced a few men, I had a couple of children, and I tried several geographic cures for my crumbling life, mostly to Texas, Florida, New York, and California. I always went to Texas, Florida, California, New York. I don't know why. The Hells Angels Motorcycle Club considered me a little sister, so I stayed protected in the clubs. But still, by the time I was 27, I had encountered the law, aliases, guns, drug raids, the mafia, gave birth to a couple of kids to drag through the whole mess, and was generally just in a downhill slide, trust me. Now, I got sober by mistake. I didn't mean to get sober. I tried to commit suicide and botched it up, and I ended up in a hospital with some guy from AA hanging over my hospital bed trying to tell me that I was an alcoholic and needed to go to meetings. Considering at this time I didn't have anywhere else to go, my husband of the day, my husband du jour, took the kids and didn't want anything to do with me. So when I left that hospital, I went to an AA meeting with that guy, figuring, I could probably get some money off him, some, place to stay, whatever, right? I could probably, graft something off of him. Well, I went to the meeting, and the rest is history. I never left AA, and that was 35 years ago. I had no intention of getting sober, none. But somehow going to all those meetings taught me a few things that stuck, and I found myself staying clean and sober for the first time ever. Now, I am here to tell you that I have done absolutely everything wrong in recovery. I have done it all wrong. I waited 3 years to work my 12 steps and almost got drunk because of it. Please don't do that. Don't do that. I waited nearly 10 years to get a relationship with Jesus, and that harmed me a lot because up till then I only had a God of my own understanding, and the things that I understood about anything weren't based on any good reason or logic, so my idea of God wasn't really very good either. I mean, think about it. How can a sick mind conjure for itself a healthy God, right? So, please, confirm Jesus as your higher power today if you haven't already. Just go for it. Stop fighting it. Jesus is the higher power you want. Trust me, okay? Just trust me on this. But I can tell you that I did as many things right as I could. I eventually got a sponsor. I did finally begin to work the 12 steps, and I still continue today. I did go to literally thousands of meetings, which I really believe saved my life. I did, and I still do, sponsor many people. I did lots of service work. I prayed to the God I didn't understand very well, whether he was real or not, and I didn't drink or pick up a drug no matter what. And you know what? It was enough. It kept me sober long enough to be able to consider who God really was. You know, the 11th step asks us to seek, through prayer and meditation, to improve our conscious contact with God as we understand him. And guess what? That step, just like the other ones, worked. It worked. Little by little, I learned more and more about what it meant to be a follower of Jesus Christ and a person of integrity in recovery, whose walk equaled her talk. You know, Proverbs 3, 5 through 6 became a favorite Bible verse of mine, and it still is. Trust in the Lord with all your heart. Lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways submit to him, and he will make your path straight. So fast forward to today, because when you're really old, there's a lot to say in a little bit of time. So we're going to fast forward. I'm a United Methodist pastor, and I know that's crazy. That's a crazy leap, but that's how God is. It was a crazy, strange ride that brought me from exotic dancer to the Board of Ordained Ministry of the United Methodist Church. Seriously, there's not enough time ever to tell that story, but just hear this. With Jesus and a disciplined program of honest recovery, you can do anything. That's a fact. I am living proof. They don't ordain people like me. No, I have no special talent at staying clean and sober or some special intelligence that got me from zero to hero, but nonetheless, here I am. That's pure and simple, the power of Jesus and recovery. So give the program of recovery, please, a long, persistent, honest trial for yourself, and you'll see for yourself. God has a plan for your life. He put you on this earth for a purpose. And if you stay sober enough, he is going to lead you to places you never even imagined. He'll mold you into the person he always knew you could be. Well, you know what? 90% of the time, when you're working a program and living out your faith, life goes pretty good. Maybe not perfect, but at least you're not causing any more chaos in your life, right? Or others' lives. So usually life isn't too tragic. You have a place to live, you get things to eat, your relationships go more smoothly as you work on them. This earth is still on the axis. Life in recovery is a beautiful, hope-filled experience full of purpose and excitement the majority of the time. But you know, I believe we practice our recovery not for these times, but for different times, for the times when tragedy strikes, when we make bad mistakes, when life is unfair, when the earth goes off its axis. I don't think that we practice our recovery work, the steps, go to meetings, work with a sponsor, learn the Bible, pray, worship, and engage in service for times when things are good. I think we do it for that rest of the 10% time. You know, I share this with you because I've found it to be true throughout my recovery and my faith journey, that the reason I have to stay fit in my spiritual condition, growing in relationship with Christ and working a disciplined program of recovery, following directions, being willing to change and to grow even when I don't agree, is that there is going to come a time when tragedy strikes, when the worst of life happens, when I am beyond human aid and my life is completely out of my control. It's during those times that only a deep well of recovery and faith can save you. So nearly 10 years ago, this happened to me, and my recovery was brutally tested. That little girl who I was carrying around in my arms and all my testimony pictures, my precious sister, Dorothy, she died in 2011. She got sick. She got sick all at once. She quickly died from some mysterious disease on her 43rd birthday. Well, I couldn't believe it. It was all so fast. She was my best friend. She was like my daughter. We were so close, and she went and died. And the pain from that was just indescribable. I had had both my parents die, my grandmother die, friends die, even a couple of ex-husbands die, and I had never felt anything like the grief from losing Dorothy. And then the month after she died, I got this advanced case of salmonella poisoning, and I landed in the hospital for a week. I was so sick, I literally thought I was going to follow my sister into the grave. When I remained so sick I couldn't function 10 days after leaving the hospital, I was diagnosed with a brain aneurysm, and I went back into the hospital for another few weeks, and it turned out there were a few blood clots in my brain as well as in my ankle. All in all, I spent over a month in hospitals and a few months after that recovering. And then 2 months after that, I fell off the church altar right here, believe it or not, on Christmas Eve, and I dislocated my hand. And 3 months after that, I got into a severe car accident in which I completely totaled my car. Part of me wondered if I had a death wish. Throughout this, the death of my sister continued to torture me, and my loneliness was so intense, a loneliness that no human being could fill. You know, those of you who have lost people that you love so much or have endured those severe health problems understand what I'm talking about. And then, just this past September, my beautiful first son, Jay, died in a car accident at the age of 38. And it still seems impossible to me, friends, to say those words. And because there's no magic cure for the pain of losing a child, there are really no words to express it to you. These past 10 months have been like a bad dream, looping over and over and over again. My heart is broken, my mind is foggy, my body is exhausted from weeping and stress. Nothing is the same, it seems. You know, if you have never experienced this pain, I pray with all of my heart and all of my soul that you never have to. I love him. I miss him so much. There's not a moment of any day that he's not on my heart and in my mind. But here's the deal. I have stayed clean and sober through every bit of it. And that's the whole point of recovery, isn't it? Recovery practices, recovery people, combined with my higher power, Jesus Christ, is seeing me through it all. See, Jesus is carrying me, and the program is protecting me. Recovery is for real life. Not just for the good times, it's for real life. Jesus is God in all of our life's circumstances. And here's the truth, I have a blessed life. 35 years of continuous sobriety has shown me the goodness of God. I am blessed to be married for 17 years to the drummer. I have a shirt that actually says I'm with the drummer. And I really am. My other two grown children are lights in my life. Okay, I did mention you. I did mention you, Anthony, there, not by name. I have beautiful grandchildren, a wonderful home and friends. I get to be a pastor here, right here at Grace Church. I have a purpose. You know, recovery is worth it. Because the tragedies would have happened whether I knew recovery or not. But going through them in recovery with Jesus, a sponsor, meetings, the 12 steps and ways to serve, I'll tell you, this has given me hope for the future even as I walk through agonizing pain. You know, I want to close with a few words of what I've learned. If you just stick with your sponsor and meetings and the 12 steps and Jesus and service, your life is going to change and you're going to have a new purpose on this planet. Those are the 5 essentials we talk about all the time. It happened for me, and that's why I know it'll happen for you. No matter what you've done, no matter who you've hurt, no matter how you feel, where you've been, what you've experienced, and how you have been wounded, Jesus has been healing and forgiveness and love and power over you. He has been giving you all of this if you will just surrender yourself to him and allow him to lead you down his disciplined path. And I want to put a good word in, too, for the traditional programs of recovery like Alcoholics Anonymous, Cocaine Anonymous, Narcotics Anonymous, Al-Anon, SAA for sex addicts, OA for food addicts, GA for gamblers, all the A's, because without these groups, I would be dead today. Amen. Sometimes as Christians, we get really hoity-toity about going to those programs that we think are filled with heathens. But here's what I know. They aren't filled with heathens. They're filled with healing. Okay? If you're having problems finding a sponsor or working the steps, don't suffer alone. These are the places that are going to save your butt, okay? Along with Choose Recovery in the church, of course. Eat from the whole recovery banquet, please. Do not starve yourself. God provides healing nourishment in these other rooms as well. I still go to AA all the time, and if anyone wants to know more about why these programs are so useful to us, see me after this, and we'll have a little chat. In closing, I pray for each and every one of you a rich and consistent recovery process whereby your life gets better day by day, one day at a time, and your relationship with Jesus Christ continues to deepen and sustain you through every season of your life as you are transformed into who God always knew you could be. Jesus and recovery is an unbeatable combo. Don't ever give up. Keep pushing through. Don't quit. Remember what I said in the beginning. Life, all of life, the good, the bad, the happy, and sad, is better with Jesus and recovery. It really works if you work it. Trust in the Lord with all your heart. Don't lean on your own understanding. In all your ways, submit to Him. He'll make your path straight. Thank you for letting me share. God bless you.